Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the teenage years. I'm Rachel Richards, journalist, parenting coach, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 bonus daughters.
Hi there, I'm Susie Asley, mindfulness coach, mindful therapist and musician, and mother of 3 teenagers. 2 of them are twins.
Susie, have you planned your summer yet?
Yeah, actually.
Have you?
I know. I know.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
We kind of have had to this year.
Why?
Well, we always have to have some sort of structure because my kids go to their dads for a chunk of it. So, and even though actually that's not actually the booked part yet, the dates are sort of set. And we're also going on a big holiday together,
wow,
which will be amazing. So they're going to the Reading Festival.
Yes,
it's been a bit of a jigsaw piece this year, actually.
Exactly. That's my problem, and that's why I'm so impressed, because this is the first time I've had a real issue trying to pull summer together, because one of my daughters is dating and she keeps putting things in the diary, right, which mean it's really complicated, and I'm assuming and she's on a Greek camp sort of for a couple of weeks, and it's just trying to piece it together. I can't really work out where we can have a holiday or any time off together as a family. So we have nothing booked.
It's tricky.
But
it can
do you know what? England is at its best in summer.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying to myself.
So they say.
So if all else goes to whatever, that's where we'll be. Anyway, we'll talk about how to plan a summer that's useful for our kids, because I think as parents, a lot of us think, some of us work all the way through summer and we just get a small amount of time off. Some of us have whole summers with our kids, and it's just figuring this out, because obviously the teen years are different to when they're little, different set of problems. But first of all, do you have a nugget at all?
I do. And my nugget is a bit general. They often are actually mine, aren't they?
No, they are, yes.
I don't do specifics.
You always say that. This one's quite general.
That means I couldn't think of anything. No, it doesn't. No, I was thinking the other day that sometimes I think it's really important to remember that we are all feeling like we are winging it. Like I had a day, and we all have them, and I thought, just in relation to this, doing this podcast, sometimes I think, what am I doing? What am I doing? And have a day where I just think I'm doing everything wrong, parenting wise, and it just it accumulates. It's often because I'm already tired, or there's something else going on, or my window of tolerance has shrunk for a different reason, or because of the parenting issues. And I'm just suddenly catch myself thinking, oh my goodness, I'm rubbish at this. What am I doing? And have to sit down and just sort of unpack it and have a bit of a kinder chat to myself, and try and bring myself out of it, and take each issue as it comes and as it is, which always helps, and try and bring some gratitude in.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I think the feedback we get from a lot of listeners is that that's how they feel.
Yes.
That's how we all feel.
Yes. And
it can hit you at any time.
Yes. And we all have those days where everything feels a bit tricky, and how on earth have we been given this big responsibility? Yeah. How is this going to turn out? And then the next day it's different. It always passes. It's always different. It's always passing, and we can be kinder to ourselves in the process.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I did a lot of Ashtanga yoga, and I trained under David Swenson, who's a peripatetic teacher who travels around the world. A very short course I did with him. But somebody put up their hand and said, at what point are you ready to teach someone else yoga? Because it was a teacher training course. Yeah. And he said, at the point where you know more than someone else.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, wow, that's a completely different way of looking at it, because everyone's talking about grades and insurance and things. And I think it's the whole point is that we're all trying to learn as we go along.
Yes.
And I think the parenting culture has turned into one where there's a sense that there are people who know how to do it right, and then there's the rest of us, and we need to learn from the people who know how to do it right. But the truth is, I don't think anybody's getting it right all the time. No. And I think it's a muddle through, and we're all learning as we go along. And being honest with our kids about that too is a very powerful thing.
Yes, modelling through and sharing as we go.
Sharing as we go. That's where we're at. So that's what we're doing. And my nugget is, again, we've been doing a bit on studying, because of course the kids are in massive exam season. Both my kids have been going through exams, one tests. One's doing tests, one's doing exams. And one of them at the weekend wanted me to, she just said, could you come and sit with me and just go through this stuff with me? And It was Greek. I can't even read Greek. I don't know. But it was just the fact that I was there with her, and then she could, and it took quite a long time. Yeah. But that sort of drilling and the ability to keep going back and forcing it in, she kept saying, I have to do this to get it into my long-term memory. And I think there's an element of, I think sometimes our kids can feel like it's not fair because it looks like that person's not having to do any work.
Yes.
And I have to do all of this work, and then they feel like they're inadequate for doing it. The point is that even the really, really good people, in fact, the really, really good people behind the scenes are doing a huge amount of drilling that we don't see.
No, I've been doing that with one of my kids as well, and it's very interesting, isn't it? Because it's very different, and I know you've had that with your girls as well. They approach it very differently, and I'm really curious about, when does all that start? The ones who, because one of mine wants me to, like you, wants me to sit and listen. I've spent hours testing him for various things, and he finds it really helpful. And the other one doesn't, just a little bit, and some subjects. And when do they, and they're all different. They learn in very different ways. But when do they? What point did they go? Oh, this is a good idea. This is helping. And then, of course, then it grows because it's like a carrot, isn't it? It's helping, so I'll do it again, kind of thing. Yeah. When does that start? It's really interesting.
And my daughter went to a school where they had a quiz every Christmas, 100 things they had to answer. And it was a family quiz. The whole family had to be involved. And I thought it was quite annoying at the time, but you present it at Christmas Day and say, all right, everybody's got to help us with this because these are really difficult questions. Well, they forced the kids to learn the answers to all the 100 questions, and then they did a test on them. It was just supposed to be fun. She actually took it seriously. And she said, you know what, my general knowledge now is amazing as a result.
Wow.
Whereas all the other kids who are like, this looks really dull and I don't want to do it.
Where are the sweets?
Don't have the But I think it can start. It can be one thing where they start taking something seriously, and then they realise that actually by doing it, I don't know.
Yeah, anyway, it's interesting, isn't it?
None of them are broken. It'll all work out anyway.
Yeah. And when you know a lot of Greek now.
I don't know any Greek. Cannot speak. It's ancient Greek, darling. That's never going to happen.
Oh, okay. I think I could have sat some of my son's GCSEs actually this year.
Yeah, I can't sit any of these exams, but that's fine. Now, coming back to the summer holidays, there's a belief that summer holidays used to be to give kids a break from education so they could help the parents in the fields.
Yes.
Yeah. So agricultural cycle. Obviously, for a lot of people, that's not an existing thing anymore. And in fact, there are a lot of laws against it in Western countries, which is a completely different subject about how we're now restricting our kids from practicing going to work. But the length of holidays differs from one country to the next.
Yes, very much.
And do you know where they have the longest holidays, summer holidays?
No, I don't. I'd say Mediterranean.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
that was a lucky guess.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I know people listen in the Mediterranean, but in Spain and Italy, I think in some parts of Italy, it's up to 13 weeks off at summer, and Spain 10. Germany and France are similar to the UK, which is 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the schools. And in South Korea, kids get an average of 4 weeks off school at summer. Interesting, isn't it? What's interesting is that South Korea does have very consistently high PISA scores, which is the test that they put in place 15-year-olds around the world just to see where they are with maths and English. Okay. So yes, you could say short summer holidays help with that. But then Finland also has high PISA scores, and their summer break is 10 to 11 weeks.
Yeah, and they're all really happy.
And they're all happy.
And it's not just the holidays, is it? It's how long is the school day and all of that.
Yeah, and they don't give their kids homework.
No.
Or very little. So it doesn't necessarily correlate. So my point being that don't panic if your kids are just hanging around all summer.
No,
it's not going to destroy them.
To mean anything. It's how do we manage the summer holidays?
Yes, exactly. Right. And in Portugal and USA, there are big cultures of summer camps and summer schools. That's not something in the UK. It seems just ridiculously expensive. Like I don't know how people would afford summer schools, but I think it's a bigger thing in the US.
But it's not a normal thing to do, I don't think.
Yeah. And I found an excellent website by a chap called Daniel Wong, because I've been looking at this for quite a while thinking, how do you plan summer? What are we supposed to do here? Because I think it bothers a lot of parents. And so I'll have that website in the podcast notes. I like him because he thinks in a way that I think. So it is biased because that's the way I think too. And he starts with taking stock.
Okay.
Now, this is exactly what I do every new year for my New Year's resolutions. It's look back and think, what did I achieve this year? Like, be good about myself. Just say, wow, how far have I come? Because I think one of the important things we need to do is put a stake in the sand and just say, I feel good about myself because I did this, this, and this. So that's a really nice thing to do with your kids. And then you can also say, so are there things that I would have liked to have done better? And what could I do next year?
Are you thinking of like looking back on the school year?
At the end of the school year, just sit them down and just say, hey, should we just go through this? But start with the positive. Start with the, you can say as a parent, these are the things I've seen that have been amazing. Start with some real praise because they definitely will have grown. Okay, they might have been awful.
And we're not always very good at for ourselves, always a culture of going back and doing what did we do well. We usually look at the bits that didn't go well.
Yeah, so if you like this, I've used this technique I've actually written a blog about it for my New Year's resolutions. It's the way I always start And he then talks about setting process goals for the next term. Because of course you're starting the summer.
What's a process goal?
I'm going to go through that. So you start in the summer. Let's just actually do that work now before you forget about school altogether. And the process goal is different from a performance goal. So a performance goal is I need to get an A. A process goal is how you go about doing it. Right. I'm going to do after dinner, I'm going to make sure I do, this much work towards whatever subject. You can sort of look back and think, okay, what went wrong here was I didn't have consistent routine in terms of getting things done, and then it all backed up. Yeah. So you can say, okay, so judging by what happened then, I could do this that would be a better way of managing my time. Yeah. And then just set those goals, and then that next term you don't start from scratch and think, wait, what am I supposed to do? Well, I don't remember what I did wrong last time. And then you just
some
repeat
really good
the same
seeds,
thing.
isn't it? You can always change them, but
exactly
to have some sort of structure is good.
Exactly. And then so you can set sort of 5 or 10 process goals, things where you think, okay, when I come home, I'm going to pop my electronics down, have a snack, just set it up and then forget about it. And so he talks about things that you can then do with your kids to just focus their minds over the summer. And again, he starts off with things like setting up good routines. And Ken Raybo talked about this and how routines really, really help us. And it's a nice time to work on routines. We go, oh, let's just let everything flop. But actually, after they've had a bit of time off and they've just relaxed, you can then say, so what are the routines that would really help me? What are the things that I've sort of been stumbling on and if they get out of hand during the term? And obviously things do to an extent, but can we fix some of these things? So you can create checklists like, the reading before you go to bed, the gratitude journal, any of those things. You can sort of say, well, should we just work on some of those things over the summer holiday when it's not too pressurized? Because I think trying to make changes when you're really under pressure can be really difficult.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. We don't have the capacity.
Yeah. And then actually the fun stuff. Well, it can be fun, it can be not. So 1, declutter. So I know that by the end of the term, both my kids' rooms have built up with all the exam papers and everything and clothes that they've probably grown out of or whatever. So you can set it as a task and go to a garage boot sale. So we've got a boot sale here in our local area this Sunday to raise money for a charity. And we've been several years in a row. We're not doing this year because of their exams, but it's huge fun to go to a boot sale with all your stuff. Yes. And just spend half a morning just,
as long as you don't come back with more refill. Stuff. Like my kids do.
One of mine does, yes. But that's a nice, it's a nice activity. Really it's like, actually, let's declutter. Let's go through the entire room. I don't need these things anymore. I'm not wearing those clothes.
Yeah, we desperately need to do that in our house.
But it's a nice, actually, if you set it as a task, you can say, let's have a sort of a task, and then we're going to go and either take it to a charity shop, we're going to sell it.
Actually, one of my kids is planning a big bonfire for all his exam notes. And I'm like, okay, do you need that? And they are all over the house. They are in the kitchen. They're apart. We're not allowed to touch them because they look completely ramshackle to us. But it's, no, I know where things are. I don't think he does, but we're not allowed to touch them. So I can't wait for that to go.
What a fantastic thing to do. And that's a celebration. You can toast marshmallows, go out and just enjoy. Yeah, I love that. It's a kind of ritual, isn't it?
Yeah, he's definitely up for that.
In terms of kind of just developing their skills. There's the thing to do is just talk to them about the options and get them to choose. Obviously, we can tell them things to do, but I'm just kind of throwing in suggestions here. So some of them were things like watching educational YouTube videos, picking something they really like or they're really interested in. Because again, when they're at school, they're really confined.
Yeah, I think I'm just sitting here thinking mine would laugh at me if I suggested that.
Really?
Yeah,
because mine wouldn't.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One of them would probably be up for it, and the other would go, "It's the holidays. What are you doing?"
but maybe that's not but that may not be the way they like to grow. For example, in the holidays, we always watch documentaries as a family.
Okay.
During the term time, we just want to watch a film.
Yeah, interesting.
But when we're on holiday, it's all, for some reason, as a family, we come together and we love watching documentaries. We watch some really great ones.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I could suggest it. Mine aren't around very much this holiday. But, but yeah, that's another. There's
the old Get a Job.
Yes. Yes, please.
Which I've told my kids they have to do. So, but that's something we can structure.
Yeah.
So it's about kind of helping them through the process of making up either cards or a CV and talking them through. Because I've started sending things when I see jobs around, sending them to my daughters and saying, so these are the sorts of jobs that are out there, to try to get them their heads around the ideas of what's out there and how they go about. And sometimes some need more hand holding than others.
Yes.
And I think
because it's uncomfortable, isn't it? It's the discomfort
really
of practicing that. It's really, really good.
But I've been thinking a lot about this because I think this generation compared to our generation, and this may be a different experience for you, they are not allowed to work in our country until they're 16. No. In London, it's 18. I was talking to a mum about this the other day. Babysitting. Yeah, I'm just talking about structured sort of workplaces.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, when I was a teen, I basically worked in so many different jobs. And I just think it was much more, you just sort of answered a job advert, you called them up, and there was no CV.
No, it's really different
word
now.
process, and it wasn't formal. It was just, I'll come and work for you for a while. And so by the time I got to my kids' ages, I was sort of comfortable with approaching people and trying to get work. And I think it's a much bigger hurdle. And so one of the things I've been reading about is making that hurdle seem lower because it just feels really insurmountable.
Yes.
And I think also there's an element of, I was speaking to a dad the other day who said his son feels he's begging him not to make him go and work and have to serve because he doesn't want to have to serve people his age.
Oh, okay.
And he said, I'd rather pot wash. I don't want to go to work. And there's this weird shame element with being in a service position.
Oh, okay.
Whereas I always thought that was just, I loved it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where that's coming from.
I have not heard that before.
No, me neither. But there are things, it's all about getting them out there, building skills that are positive and that they enjoy. So it's not about trying to make their life horrible. But one thing I did was I volunteered in a wildlife sanctuary when I was a teenager. Loved it. So that you can find causes they care about and that they can volunteer at. So even if they can't get a job, there are other things they can be doing.
Yeah, and earning money is really, really good thing to... Yeah. They get the value of money, isn't it? Like, I spent, an hour earning that. I'm not just going to fritter it away.
No, exactly. And I think we really need that. That is the flip side of the education. And I think we've shifted. I was listening to someone talk the other day. I think it was a Financial Times correspondent who was talking about when he was growing up, 2% of people went to university. And he said now it's 40%, but we don't need all those people.
No.
With graduate skill. And he said the problem is you need people with the other skills that they need to be
100%.
Yes. So we need to be sort of pushing that flip side of the coin because when they're at school, it's so focused on the academics. And
doing those kinds of jobs, I did that as a kid. I did being a musician, I played loads of, funny, weird jobs. And not that kind of weird, but and you really get, behind the scenes work and bar work and waitressing.
Which is fun.
You really learn more about people in those kinds of jobs than you do anywhere else, I think. It really does give you the way people treat you as a waitress or as a musician, a background musician, is so revealing. It teaches you more about people than a psychology course, I reckon.
I 100% agree with you.
Yes. Totally being silly about it. But it really does teach you the way they treat you. And I remember wedding gigs, some people would be lovely. Most people are lovely and they bring us food or drink. And some people were like, oh, yeah, you can go and sit over there. And if you have to use the toilet kind of thing, you're really the scum. You just think, wow, it's so interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really good for kids to experience how people are treated and how important it is to treat everybody nicely.
Yeah, no, I
whatever
love that.
they do and whatever they bring to the table.
Yes, and then they also see the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, because they just see something being delivered to them and they don't think,
they don't realise,
because you can't you can't picture it if you're not involved in the process. And it stops that sort of, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and not understanding what's involved.
Right. All the process is involved in it. It's really important.
Yeah. Physical health.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out, because I've actually had a word with one of my daughters about it and saying I'm going to attach the allowance to physical exercise because I really want them to be exercising during the summer. I don't care what they do. So I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just saying I need you to be doing 3 sets of physical exercise that are meaningful during a week during the summer, and you can show me the evidence, and that will be part of your allowance that goes into that. And if you do it, I will give you a little bit more. If you don't, you get some of your allowance taken away. So it will be just connected to it, so that and I've had a conversation with one, she said, no, that's fair enough, fine. Reading. Now that, the 2 boys, the twins who wrote the book, Do Hard Things, that I talked about in the How to Set High Expectations episode, that's what happened to them one summer. I think it was when they were 16, 17, their dad said, right, well, this summer you're going to read all these books, and put them on the table and said, you can come off those phones and computers, you're reading books. And it completely changed their life.
Wow. And they said yes, obviously.
Yeah, they did. He just said you need proper education by reading the greats, as they say. And I think it's a very interesting way. And now it won't suit everybody. It depends on how you are, but that's just getting your kids reading more. It's really powerful.
Really good. Really good. I'm logging all these ideas.
Well, I'll put them in a blog.
Yeah.
Oh, and the link to Daniel's website, because it's really, really good. Well, getting them to think about what one skill would you like to get a lot better at? Yeah,
that's a nice way of looking at it.
Yeah, one thing. It can be playing an instrument, it can be fixing things. Is there something that you and get them to brainstorm it, and then spend time every day doing that and talking about, break down the process so they understand. Because if you say get better at this, then they'll go, okay, well, how does that work? Because if they've been in a school environment where everything's structured around them, quite often they don't really know the process. So it's actually, you're doing 2 things. One, they're learning a new skill, but they're also learning how to take what's in their environment that isn't being curated in the way that it is at school and figure out how to learn from it. Because I think the one thing I've learned from being a parent is we have an assumption that our kids are going to learn things through osmosis. They'll notice how we do things and then they'll learn from that. And it's just not true.
No.
A small percentage can learn that way. A lot of them can't.
No.
So they'll learn certain things from the way we treat them and the way we behave.
Yeah, they do learn all that.
Lots of values, lots of things. But what they don't, there is a procedural thing that a lot of them stumble because they just didn't see how that worked.
Yes. And so when they leave home, they don't know how to put the washing machine on or how to cook a meal, or because they've watched it a million times but haven't really taken it in. Yeah, no, totally.
And when my kids were younger, when they were sort of 13, 14 and starting at senior school, way too much going on. I just let that stuff slide. I wasn't focused on it. But I've now said to them, girls, you're 16, 17, you have to have these skills. And I've started talking through the skills they have. And I'm saying, you're leaving home soon. And we have enough run-up time to make sure that you really nail these things. And it's not about me, it's about you being able to do these things. So let's see so you could actually write a list and say, not from you've got to contribute to the household. It's more like, do you feel that you know how to do these things?
Yeah, because it gives them confidence. I've seen that in my eldest. He's left home and he's really capable in lots of things, but some stuff is really overwhelming, isn't it? And it's simply just familiarity and practicing it. And then you're like, we joked the other day, he's come back from uni, it sucks to be an adult, doesn't it, sometimes? Yeah. I have to do that, and then I have to do it again. Yeah.
Wait till you're a parent and you have to cook meals, for the rest of your life.
It's not all fun.
No, it's not. But they do that. So again, they have that perception when they're younger. What was that card? It said, teenagers, move out, get yourself a job, get yourself a home while you still know everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Another thing that you can do is get them to start understanding money. Right?
Yes.
So if it hasn't actually happened yet, it's like just sit down and say, how do you think a mortgage works? How do you think and just start going through that stuff with them. These are like, they've got spare capacity.
Yeah.
So you can say, well, this is something that you don't seem to have a clue about. Let's go through it.
Yeah. I think these are amazing ideas and they're brilliant. And they all require that there's a good connection, don't they?
They all require a good connection.
And that
you
there's
can work
time,
on that.
And that there's time as well.
Time. Yeah. I mean, if you're working all the time, this is going to be hard. But you can say, my whole point is, right, that very first sit down with them at the end of school is that kind of review and then just going, okay, because it could be that what you want to do over the summer is build your connection.
Yeah.
Which is a really valuable thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's another thing you can work on, where you just say, I think things have gone a bit off piece.
Yeah.
So can we sit and let's have a think about how over the summer we can do things that work for both of us.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So it can be lots of different ways of looking at it. I mean, mine are a way. They've always been. I'm sitting here thinking, there's lots of things that I would like to have done and do. They always go to their dads for half the holiday, and that's the case for lots of people, I'm sure. And suddenly, then you go on holiday for a bit with family. We've always done that, and then the window is really tiny. So getting jobs and stuff, that's not possible because nobody wants to employ someone for a couple of weeks. Well, I mean they do, but it's more limited and things like that. But you can still work with what you have, can't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I do think my kids throw that at me. They go, well, nobody wants. The truth is they do because people are having events on their art. Yes. I've started looking at, in fact, somebody said on the local Facebook group, is there any sort of seasonal work? Yeah. Lots of people said, yes, these people are looking. Brilliant. There is seasonal work out there. Yeah. And I did a lot of that when I was a teenager. Lots of weddings. Yes. I did lots of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or just, it doesn't even need to be waitressing. No. A lot of these things need people to set up, to strike it. Yes. Yeah. These festivals, they need people working at them. There are lots and lots of jobs, yes. Yeah, no, and another thing that's an interesting one is to help them reconnect with their friend and family. Yeah. So, this is one thing that's really valuable. It may feel like, oh God, they're going away, but actually it's a positive thing. So finding 100%. Members of the family they don't get the time to see. Yeah. And building that and building your family history. Yeah, it's really key. And seeing grandparents and people that maybe you don't have so much time when you're doing your exams or your schoolwork. You have a bit more space. These are valuable things. So really we sort of start, we still stay in that mindset where, we've got to improve all those academic things. But actually, if you look at the range of things you could be working on, that are really much more enjoyable in many ways. And there's another one I saw, which was find a mentor. Ooh. And I stopped with that and I thought, gosh, that's a really interesting one because Angela Duckworth talks about it. She's the woman who's famed for her TED Talk on grit, which has just had so many millions of people watching it. And I think her latest book that's going to come out is about, and it's to do with management of companies and things, but it's also to do with just people. And she said, there's been this idea that you get this lone wolf, like this lone person who's succeeding, the top of the company, the whatever. And she said, the truth is we don't. We need mentors. And in the book, she talks about how we need to find mentors and choose mentors we're responsible to and who are responsible to us. And it's actually a really positive thing to talk about. And whether it's a sporting mentor, it doesn't even necessarily need to be someone older. It could be someone their age where they think, they're really good influence on me. Does she suggest that there's some sort of accountability there, or is it? You can do absolutely. Or is it more of it that you're looking and being inspired? Either. There are different types. So, for example, do you remember I talked about the FOMO episode where you can choose people who are distant from you, and you can choose them to aspire to be more like them. So you can. So, for example, a man who's local who created Churchill, the insurance company, which was very successful. He told me how when he was a young boy, they were desperately poor and he wasn't doing well at school, and he started reading Churchill's writing and was so inspired it just completely changed his life. So it's about what is my who is there somebody who can inspire me? Is it someone close that I can choose as someone who will be I will be accountable to.
Yeah,
and
like a sponsor almost.
And likewise, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Or we can offer to be mentors for other people.
Yes. Yeah.
And it can be someone your own age,
Yeah.
or it can be someone older. And, there are some people, we talked about this with exercise, that some people need someone else to turn up for, and other people don't.
External, internal.
Exactly.
Driven.
So if you are that type of person, it's good to buddy up with someone and say, hey, you know what, why don't you check in with me? And I saw, what was the one I was seeing where they talked about how, it was a course, I think it was, where at the start of the course, you were buddied up with somebody.
Yeah.
And the whole point, and it was exercise, it was sport exercise, I can't remember. And the whole point was that your goals were set, and then the person who was your buddy would have to report back. And they would have to justify why you didn't achieve those goals if you didn't.
Gosh.
Because that way you felt
really obliged.
Yes. Very interesting.
I mean, there's loads of research on all of that, isn't there? That if we are accountable to other people, we are way more likely to follow through.
I think that's true.
And the person who is being the mentor or the sponsor, whatever you want to call them, also gets a huge amount out of it. Always.
Exactly. It's wonderful.
Not a one-way street, is it?
Yeah. And lastly, I think when it comes to inspiring them, I think often their world is quite small and they can't envisage jobs, they can't envisage, university, well, what does this mean? Or college or anything. Yeah. And actually, it might be a really nice time to go and visit places. Yeah. Just go and see what maybe the town or maybe the college, or start looking through some of the courses. Yeah, if you find somebody. Yeah. So let's say you've got a kid who doesn't really know what they want to do, but they're really handy. Just say, is there a plumbers who he can shadow, or she can shadow for a day or two, so they can just get a sense of what that work's like.
I think it's a brilliant idea. And also the idea that actually often when they get to the end of term, they're actually really knackered and it's all been really full. And our kids are overscheduled really, aren't they? And
really overscheduled.
And when they've had exams, we've talked about this before, the whole process is not particularly healthy for them. So there is an absolute need to just go, ugh.
I completely agree.
And do absolutely, like you talked about, like do absolutely nothing. And then I find actually in our holidays that then there's not, because then they're going to their dads, and then there's not much else time left. But it's those kind of doing nothing times are actually super valuable, and time where they can just hang out with their friends, and just be kids is really nice. But then doing these other things in and dotting them in, I think that's a brilliant mix.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that too. I think actually having unstructured time is critically important, because the kids that come out of a very structured environment and then have never experienced no structure also really struggle. And I've seen this a lot with the older, the 20-year-olds, where they have no idea how to spend their time.
You don't know how to be bored. But I do think taking stock and just helping direct them, definitely. and it's a light touch. Yeah, and definitely. It's them. It's like, what do you want? How do you feel? My daughter has already come up with a list of things she wants to try and achieve, not directed by me at all. I think it's great, because I think sometimes it is very much, and I'm just speaking from personal experience and my kids' friends, the assumption and the presumption that the holidays are to do nothing in, which is lovely and amazing, but actually maybe we could also do some really lovely, useful things as well, and sort of introducing them. And they do that as well, but maybe being a bit more conscious around it. Yeah.
And I think that's what that's the role we can play.
Offer that, yeah.
And coming back to finally what you said about how turning up for people can make all the difference. Yeah. And the fact that we get all these amazing reviews from people makes me get up and write the podcast. Yeah. It makes me do all the research, because I feel like, okay, it matters.
It does matter.
And I think this is how we have to think about that with our kids. Yes. If mattering is really important, and we parents, rather than nagging, which we can do.
Yeah, we can be really good at that.
Yeah, you're really good. I can nag for England. It's just showing them that they just matter.
Yeah.
It's, like my daughter, when she was studying for exams, didn't really want to talk about it.
No.
And I just said, that's okay, but I would send a message just to say, just so you know, I'm thinking about you. I'm not calling because I know that you don't want to talk about it, but just mattering.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's it. If you found this useful, please let at least one other person know, and follow us. And you can review us on Apple or on the website, which is www.teenagersuntangled.com. If you want to contact Susie, How would they do that?
Best place is my website, which is www.amindful-life.co.uk. And I also just wanted to add that we can quickly get into the spiral of trying to do the holidays perfectly.
Oh gosh.
So on the back of
holiday?
that, you know, this whole list of stuff that we can do, they're just suggestions and possibilities. We're not trying to do the holidays perfectly.
No,
that's not going to feel nice for anybody.
Out of all those things that I've mentioned, maybe one or two, right? It's just a suggestion. These are all the ideas, and that you know, and if none of it happens, none of it happens.
And if you're working 9 to 5 the whole holidays and not really seeing your kids, they will also be fine and do
they
nice
will also
things.
be fine.
Yeah.
But I do think even if you're working 9 to 5, doing that, like taking stock, can be the lovely, and maybe just working on connecting.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice, exactly. Easy, not easy. It's not easy. Actually.
No, that's not easy. That's the hard one.
That's the hard one. If you want to message me, it's teenagersuntangled@gmail.com. That's it for now.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Did you just say yap, yap, yap?
Yap, yap, yap.
Brilliant.
It's my new language. I speak dog.